Hello everyone. Today I'm gonna be featuring the upcoming Tier 8 Pan-Asian destroyer called Siliwangi. I'm sorry, I have no idea how to pronounce that. Every time I pronounce it, it sounds like Silly Wang, and I'm probably gonna be messing that up and annoying some people. I apologize. Regardless. Also, I want to thank you all for the time you've taken to subscribe to the channel. I really appreciated it. It's really the best feedback I can get is getting new subs because it means people are actually enjoying my content. So thank you for taking the time to do that. The Siliwangi. Well, I'm pushing up to fight the Udaloi, and this is probably where you'll start noticing some specialties. First of all, 30-second smoke, which is a long duration, and more importantly, hydro. The Siliwangi, like Pan-Asian Lo Yang, has identical hydro, meaning it has a 5.5 km hydro range, which obviously, like the Lo Yang, is extremely effective. However, you have a different type of smoke. Instead of having those long American smokes, you have a significantly shorter smoke, but you have more of them. This thing, well, it only lasts 70 seconds in comparison to the American smokes. But this is actually much more useful because in the Siliwangi you often want to push up, pick fights, get the cap and then kind of leave because you don't really want to sit in these smokes for too long. You might have noticed that the damage that I put out on the Udaloi wasn't perhaps exactly that impressive. And that's because the Siliwangi is basically an Ognevoi. This means we also have Ognevoi DPM, which is 91k HE. Now I'm running BFT here, so we got the half a second faster reload instead of the base reload of I think 5 seconds. It's painfully slow though. That's really what it comes down to. The reload is painfully slow and the DPM is bad. Also, it's a really poor knife fighter because the turret traverse is one of the worst of all DDs. The turret traverse actually takes 18.6 seconds to make a 180-degree turn. In comparison, the Ognevoi has a 9-second turret traverse. So double Ognevois and you're kinda in Siliwangi level of turret traverse. At this point my smoke runs out and I'm not gonna stay here and pick a fight in the open with an Udaloi. Once again, in open fights you can't take in this ship. You just get out-traded. Your HE DPM is bad, your AP DPM is bad, your turret traverse is bad. It's not worth taking these kinds of fights. So if the enemy DD doesn't disengage or doesn't stay close enough to your Hydra for you to be able to deal damage, then you gotta find other sources or other opportunities to be useful. In this case, torpedoes on the Yamato. Worth noting that unlike the Lo Yang, this thing actually has deep water torpedoes. And these deep water torpedoes, as you probably could tell there, they hit really hard. That was a Yamato with its incredible torpedo belt, and he still ate a good chunk of damage. That's because the Siliwangi torpedoes are actually the hardest hitting Tier 8 torpedoes. I think they're pretty much equal to Le Terrible, the French torpedoes. They hit for 18k a pop, and you can throw out 10 of them. And this combined actually means that you have the highest alpha damage of all tier 8s, at almost being able to do 180k damage with obviously 10 of these torps, 179k to be exact. Still though, that puts you at the absolute top of torpedo power. Alpha power, not actual torpedo DPM. Because, as you might tell, the torpedo reload is incredibly long. It's 131 seconds, which is even worse than CN Yang's, it's even worse than Lo Yang's, it's worse than the Benson's. They are all around 122 seconds, you got 131. So, you have very hard hitting torpedo volleys, but it takes a long time to be able to use them. The reload is very excessive. However, in this case, it allowed me to torpedo Yamato, disengage, get us a kill, and now I'm gonna push right back into the cap. Because of the fast reloading smokes and because you have so many of them, this is even without Superintendent, it's no issue to use a second smoke to try to secure this cap, as I suspect his smoke will be fading quite soon, so he will probably be on the move. And yes, he is. He leaves the smoke, and once again we start picking a fight with him with these Ognevoi guns. Fast shell velocity, unlike the Lo Yang, but of course the DPM is much lower. Now, yes, the DPM is even lower than Lo Yang's guns. In fact, Lo Yang HE DPM is about 130. You're sitting at about 90. So if you try to out-trade with a Lo Yang that can aim will probably outgun you. However, thanks to the shell velocity, you can probably win the fight at range. Still though, the ship is good. It also has a very sizable health pool. It got 17.2k base health, which is actually more than, for example, Lo Yang's 14.6, significantly more. It's more than Cossacks, Lightnings, Bensons. It's actually pretty close to some of the top health pools. Only Z23, the French, and I think the Akizuki have more health than this ship. So it's fairly tanky. With the survivability expert perk, which you can see me running, of course you have 20k health, which for a tier 8 DD is quite respectable, especially when you consider that the concealment on this ship is 5.9 and with a Hydra of 5.5, it makes for a pretty formidable duelist, pretty formidable DD duelist. Overall, I'm actually kind of liking this concept. Vladivostok looks like it's pushing out, so we send preemptive torps. Once again, the torps are good. I think they're also faster than Lo Yang's. One of the issue with Lo Yang's torps is that they tend to rarely catch the target. Siliwangi's torps are 61 knots, unlike Lo Yang's slower ones, which are 55. Also, because they're deep water, they cannot hit DDs. This is obviously a downside, but the concealment on them is 0.8 kilometers. So you have very little reaction time, which makes them extremely hard to dodge for both cruisers and battleships alike. This combined with the Alpha Strike means that these torpedoes have actually been much more consistent in my gameplay than the Lo Yang's torps, because, well, speed and damage and deep water. This combination just makes for much more usable torpedoes. You trade off some things with the Lo Yang, but overall I would say I feel like this is a slightly better Lo Yang. And Lo Yang is a ship that I think is strong and is good. Amusingly though, in a straight up trade, I would expect the Lo Yang to defeat the Siliwangi. Simply because, well, such a huge advantage in DPM. 33% more DPM is a pretty significant advantage to have in a straight up knife fight. Pushing up, once again, smoke is ready. Sadly, my hydro runs out. Surprisingly, I'm spotted from somewhere else. I think it might be the Massachusetts down south, or something is holding me spotted, so I'm forced to smoke up as well. Normally, at this point, Lo Yang would probably already be out of smokes, since they only have 3, but the Siliwangi, having these fast acting shorter duration smokes, has no issue using a smoke for this occasion. Once I'm sure I'm undetected, I'm actually going to go pick a fight with him, because it's a CN Young, which means deep water torps, which obviously means he cannot torpedo me, so I'm not too afraid of taking this knife fight. I have to be careful though, because they have a gearing here. This is a tier 10 game, so obviously you have to be a bit careful with how you push in. Moving on to the actual stats on the ship, or some things I didn't mention. The maneuverability on the ship is good. It's not as good as Lo Yang's. Lo Yang's maneuverability is 570 meters turning circle and a 2.7 second rudder shift. It's basically a Benson hull, and the Benson is superbly agile. In comparison to Siliwangi, because it's stuck with this Ognevoi hull, well, it's much more sluggish. 4-second rudder shift and 660 meter turning circle. So 1.3 second worse rudder shift and almost 100 meter worse turning circle compared to the Lo Yang. So once again, there are trade-offs being made here. It's not just Lo Yang version 2.0. No, there are a lot of trade-offs being made in the process. Also, if I remember correctly, the plane spotting on the ship is worse than the plane spotting on the Lo Yang, quite significantly so. I think the plane spotting on the ship was 2.8 kilometers, whereas Lo Yang, I think, gets away with 2.4, 2.5, something similar. Of course, turret traverse combined with this. Oh, and one thing that obviously must be mentioned. Well, actually, I'm going to mention something a bit juicy here, because I just got spotted, and they saw me slow down. So I'm almost expecting that this Seattle is going to radar me. So we're gonna stop, we're gonna wait and see. Because what we're doing right now is we're baiting the Seattle. I'm already calling target on him, because I'm pretty sure of what he is going to pull. He will radar, we're gonna sit, patiently wait, and now we're gonna start moving out. I'm hoping he's gonna come charging out to try to kill us. I mentioned that these are deep water torps, which obviously means they are very hard to dodge. If you don't have Hydro available, the reaction time makes them extremely hard to dodge, and the Seattle ends up eating 2 of them. That's a double flood, and that's a damage con. Now I'm hoping, because well, we have a ZA and a Vladivostok up north, that one of them will take the time to shoot just one volley on this radar cruiser that's actively hunting down their last remaining destroyer. Sadly, something I often say on my stream is never ever rely on your teammates. You will only end up disappointed. So sadly my teammates are taking their sweet time shooting this guy, so I'm just kiting away, just using my back turret, weaving back and forth and trying to dodge and survive, because it looks like I'm not getting too much help in killing this guy. They luckily at the very end, well, by the time this guy is basically already sailed behind the island, I think the ZA wakes up and finally decides to shoot him, so we do get the Seattle kill. But, well, I think we did. Oh, never mind, it was actually the Conqueror that killed him. Oh, poor memory. Regardless, the other thing that I wanted to highlight before that little bait on that Seattle, since I knew he was going to rush me with radar, I traded a bit more health than I would have perhaps liked to. The other thing I want to highlight is the AA. Now, tier 8 DDs in general have really poor AA, but the Siliwangi has exceptionally poor AA, because the Siliwangi doesn't even have any long-range flak, which is very, very crippling, because, well, you can sometimes kill the squadrons of potato carriers because they fly straight into your flak and they eat an unnecessary amount of damage. That's not happening here. With this thing you only have 3.5 km, a mid-range aura, so there is no chance of actually killing them off with any good flak puff explosions, especially since DDs tend to have 100% accuracy on the flak, which means it tends to throw the flak in front of the planes. Here's another little trick. Once again, we're gonna do a bit of mind games here, and that is, I know the lion is coming around this corner, so I'm gonna track my torps and try to follow them up to make sure. However, it looks like he is in fact turning in, which would be terrible, because then my fine torps would miss and I'm gonna have to wait a full minute. So what I do is I smoke up and I start shooting. Now, the common reaction when a DD smokes up and starts shooting you in a BB, especially if you get undetected as this guy, is to thank your lucky stars and turn away. And that's exactly what I want him to do. I want him to react to these torps, to my smoke and fire, and turn away. And the lion does exactly that, and he turns right in front of the 3 of my deep water torpedoes. So he's been chunked hard, and now of course we try to follow it up with some fires, because the mind game worked exceptionally well. Note that that sometimes also works in making ships turn in. If a ship is sailing full broadside and you smoke up on his side, or you start shooting from his side, he usually turns in or out, depending on. They rarely keep going in a straight line. And you can also bait them into torpedoes like that. Or you can sabotage your own torpedoes. I've seen many DDs who launch perfect torpedoes and then they start shooting. And then the battleship turns because he's being shot at and he sees a DD, and then all the torpedoes whiff. So keep in mind how they react. So that we finish off the lion, and now finally I should be able to secure this camp. I pop the hydro. Note that the 5.5 km hydro range allows you to, well, easily spot ships on the other side. I see there's a smoke on the other side, so I use the hydro to push up and give my team vision. The cap is contested, so I'm even more certain that the DD is in fact sitting here, and hydro range reaches the CN Young trying to hide in the smoke and ambush the Iowa, and he gets perfect vision of the destroyer. I'm not too interested to rush around, because as I mentioned, the DPM on the ship isn't good. The DPM on the ship isn't exactly that special, so I'm not too interested in taking this fight, so I'm already angling away and making sure I'm taking this with as many advantages as possible. However, there's no need. He gets killed by the hydro, and I do a little happy dance, because that means we will in fact secure this win. Sorry about the mouse movement. Anyway, the Siliwangi though, I think this ship is in a pretty good spot. It's, I mean, if you look at the paper stats, the torpedo DPM on this ship is honestly really, really bad. The torpedo DPM on the Siliwangi is worse. It's the same as the Benson's, and Benson isn't exactly known as a torpedo power. It's significantly worse than the French. It's much worse than the Ognevoi. Ognevoi has 98k torpedo power. This one has 82k torpedo DPM, not power. So looking at stats, that looks pretty underwhelming. Looking at the AP DPM, looking at the HE DPM, all of these look bottom of the barrel. So stats-wise, you might think that, wow, the ship is pretty bad. But in actual gameplay, it kind of comes together into this surprisingly balanced premium. Here I know there is an Atago around here. I'm hoping I can catch him. I got torpedoes ready. I'm greedy to get some more damage. I already know this is going to be a good game. And Atago is in fact there. He is a bit closer than I would have hoped. So I smoke up, start laying some fire on him, drop some preemptive torps. And I think he's gonna turn wide, and then just after I've launched the torps, of course, I find out that he is in fact running hydro. So at this point, I know I'm absolutely dead. He's probably dead as well, because my torpedoes force him to turn in. He can't dodge out anymore, he needs to turn in with the hydro to dodge them, so he ends up nose-in and crossfired by my entire team, which obviously only has one outcome. He gets killed, and our team wins the game soon after. Still though, the Siliwangi. I actually like this design. I think in a straight up open fight, pretty much all other DDs will beat it. Like, Benson versus Siliwangi in a straight up fight is ridiculous. Benson does 162k DPM. Siliwangi does 91k. He's got almost twice your firepower. It's not even close. Akizuki has 192k DPM. That's 100k more than Siliwangi's 91k. In a straight up fight, pretty much everyone has the advantage. This thing can't even torpedo other DDs because it's deep water torps. Yet, if you play around the tools that the ship has, it's actually quite fun. It's actually quite effective. So, surprisingly, I think this ship is pretty well balanced, which is, I know it's rare. Saying this on a work in progress ship is rare, but I feel like this ship is in a good spot. If you play around the strengths, you can do a lot of magic. If you fail or if you try to misplay it, well, you're not really gonna achieve much at all. And honestly, I wish there were more ships like this. I kind of enjoy this one. Detailed report wise, or sorry, team score wise, 3.2k base, which is of course always good, especially when you're poor little tier 8 destroyer up tiered into tier 10. You get a lot of bonus XP when you do damage to higher tier ships, so obviously you should always look to do that if possible. Obviously it's always much more difficult as well. So I carry in the Siliwangi, which on stats looks like a poor ship, but no, it is in fact not. Detailed report wise, most of our damage obviously came from the 9 torpedoes, 105k, but 34k HE as well on top, and well, a bunch of flooding as well. So the guns do supplement, especially since you have access to these smokes so often, and we did do a 65k spotting, but don't expect too much. I might mention one last thing, the AP penetration, even though it's technically Ognevoi guns, your pen is actually worse than Ognevoi's. So you don't have those amazing Ognevoi guns or Soviet guns. Your pen is slightly worse. At 10 kilometers, where the Ognevoi has 103 millimeters of pen, the Siliwangi has 90 millimeters, which is the same as the Kiev. In fact, looking across, the penetration is identical. Yeah, I think they might actually, ship might have the Kiev guns on them instead of the Ognevoi guns. So a slight downgrade in that sense. Still though, I actually like this ship, and I think it's surprisingly balanced. Crazy, right? Who knew? Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the vid, please feel free to subscribe. I'm still, somehow, the majority of my viewers are still non-subs, which are like not subscribed to my channel, which is really weird to me. Like, I looked at the stats and I got like, or something like 51% of my viewers are not subscribed to the channel. It's crazy. Of course, I appreciate the views, don't get me wrong, I appreciate all the support, but it still just blows my mind. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. I hope you guys enjoyed the video.